Afternoon. Welcome to SHOWstudio's Fashion Film Submissions Review. I'm here today with our fashion film editors, Nicola Gribben, Esme Warren. We will be reviewing some films that I found interesting and exciting in our last selection of submissions that came in. We had a lot of submissions in this time. So it took quite a long time to go through them, so apologies to anybody who sent a film in and were waiting a long time to hear our reviews or to get an answer back from us. However, we found some really interesting films, and that's what we're here today to talk about. So, Nicola, Esme, shall we start with our first film?
Yes, definitely.
Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, this one is by Anita and Adam, and it's called Stumble.
Okay, so I'm just going to show a little tiny bit of the film, and then we'll talk about it. I'm not sure what you guys thought of this film. The reason I brought it up, and the reason I wanted to show it, is because I think it shows a very clever use of editing. That's your two's department. Partly in terms of how they cut from scene to scene, and partly in terms of how they use the soundtrack.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
what did you guys think?
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me the most with this film was the sound. The sort of lack of music at the beginning and the sort of really loud and clear diegetic sounds. So then when you cut into the music, it feels super impactful. And also the ending, she kind of drops her bag, and as her bag falls onto the floor, the music cuts again and she walks out of frame. I thought it made for like a really strong and clear ending to the film. Because I actually think a lot of the time in film, in fashion films, creating a good ending is one of the most difficult things to do.
Yeah.
We had to stop it.
Yeah. How to kind of make it just sort of not taper off into nothing and find a really clear and meaningful and purposeful ending. And I think they did a really good job of that here.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on Nicola?
Yeah, I liked it. I feel like it's quite like a tactile film. Like with the sound effects, you feel it's like quite like intense and visceral. And even this moment here where she's dancing, the sound track is playing the music, but then the diegetic sound is still like being played over it. So I feel like you feel the film, you feel like her movements, and you feel like you're in the room with her. They don't really let you like leave the room ever, because they have the sound, the natural sound of the room the whole time, which is interesting.
I think that the other things that I liked about it was how she moves. It was very hard to do if you transition. I mean, if we accept the premise that fashion film is basically fashion photography moving, it's very hard to know what to ask your model to do. If you're filming a model for a fashion film, what do you get her to do? It's not the same thing, really. It doesn't feel the same. When you're taking a photograph, you're trying to, in some way, find a composition that doesn't change. But as you know, it's a film, so she's moving, the composition is changing.
Yeah.
It's very hard, in a way, to know how to direct your model. And I thought that the movement of the girl in the film, the model in the film, was really good, really inventive, quite surprising. It isn't the language of fashion per se. I mean, it doesn't look like how most models would move. She's been directed, or she's been selected because she physically expresses herself and moves in a really interesting way. And I think it's quite one of the mistakes I think that people making fashion films do often is to get a dancer. So instead of having a fashion model who knows exactly the language of fashion, they get a dancer because a dancer can move. There's a big difference between a fashion model and a dancer. A dancer is trained to express themselves through their body, etc., etc. A fashion model is good at allowing people to understand a narrative in a piece of clothing. They're very different skill sets.
Yeah.
But I felt the girl in this film didn't move like a dancer. She moved in a, I thought, very interesting way. And also this cut, the way that they cut from
the cut
outfit to outfit, I thought was really
transitions
clever.
well. Like it kind of propels the film forward in a really like nice way. Like I think it adds to the pacing.
I wonder how much was choreographed and worked out beforehand.
Yeah. And I like how she's wearing quite like a nice, like delicate dress with heels, but she's dancing in like a very aggressive kind of way. Like it's a good sort of contrast.
Yeah, it feels succinct. It's not very long. Does anybody know how long it is? Holly, any idea how long it is? 1 minute 15.
Good length.
So that brings us on to how long a fashion film should be, which is still an unresolved thing. But as we're talking about this particular film, I think it's also very clever at the end.
Yeah.
You mentioned the handbag, but also she rips off her wig, throws it on the floor. It's quite a strong ending.
Yeah, it is.
It's quite powerful and quite surprising. In a way, it's a very good fashion film. Fashion you see, she looks great, it's watchable, the music's good, it's repeat, you can watch it on repeat. Great.
It's really engaging, which is
Well done. Okay, so should we move on to our second film?
Yeah, so this one is by Chloe Lee, and we're going to watch a looped series of AI-generated images that are, it's called Crypsus. So there's 3, I think, that are playing here. We haven't got sound with this one. And then there's the pink bottom one as well. So those are the 3.
Lovely. Okay, so that's all fine. A lot of films came in this time, I think, in response to a call out we did last year, at the end of last year, for a lovely chap called David Cash, who is putting on a sort of digital fashion film festival. So a lot of stuff came in as part of that, and this piece, I believe, was one of them. So it's part of what we're looking at the moment in SHOWstudio. So both you have been working on taking a still image and making it move. Now, that's quite a revolution in filmmaking. So the idea that now with an AI, we can take a still image and we can actually create movement from that. In a way, it's a huge change from where we've been with filmmaking. It's very, very, I think in a way it's really exciting because the problem has always been with making fashion films is fashion photography is a very well-defined medium, but fashion film isn't. And so we're having to define it, and what is it? And actually, I've often said it's just a moving still or just a piece of clothing in movement. That's all it needs to be. And that, in a way, if you look at this beautiful pink kind of blossom, it's just got movement to it, and it's beautiful, and it's about a piece of clothing. So in a way, it kind of gets really close to that. And what you guys have been doing with AI and making still images move becomes almost a sort of definition of a fashion film. It's a garment in movement.
Yeah, I think it just opens up these possibilities that we didn't have before as well, and it kind of allows you to see fashion in a really beautiful, like, different way. And like as you said before, the few frames before and the few frames after an image are like so important, and this literally like opens that door, which it's really exciting.
For people who don't know, and there will be people who don't know, what you can do with AI now is you can take a still image and you can ask the AI to make that image move through a series of prompts. And up until a few months ago, the problem with that is as soon as the AI made the still image move, it denatured it. It changed the piece of clothing. So if you've got a great sort of satin ball gown on, and that's where you take the picture of, you ask the AI to make it move, it turns it into chiffon, which is rubbish for the designer. It doesn't help. And it turns the model, so you might have
the face of the model.
The model completely changes into somebody else. So you might have Miley Cyrus in front of you, and as soon as she moves, she becomes genetic sort of AI babe. But that's changed in the last 2 or 3 months. That's changed, and now when the dress moves, it maintains the structure and the nature of the dress, sometimes to ways which you think are really, I don't know how it knows that. Somebody once did that to a picture of mine, made it move, and it did a 360, but the back of the dress was correct.
Yeah, that is,
how did it know
like
that?
blows my mind.
So it not only keeps the dress the same, but it keeps the person the same. So I just think that's huge. It's a huge step.
Yeah.
I think that everything that's been happening in the last 25 years with fashion film is such a revolution. The film industry doesn't really deal with it. Why aren't we at Sundance, or why aren't we in Cannes, or whatever else? Yeah. There should be. I mean, there are fashion film festivals stepping up, but the main film industry just doesn't quite compute it. So, Nicola, before you were at SHOWstudio, what did you do? You were at, what sort of editing were you doing?
I worked for a creative agency. So we did work with fashion, but we also worked with like beauty, and there was like more sort of brand guidelines and stuff like that. But it was a creative agency. There was, the ability to sort of explore different ideas and concepts and stuff, so yeah.
I mean, I just think that there's, in all parts of the industry, there's a sort of untalked about revolution happening. You can do things now that you could never do before, and where it takes fashion and filmmaking is really quite, we're going into uncharted waters. People have always made films in the same way. I think it's one of the things I think of people watching this. What we're trying to get across at SHOWstudio is what a fashion film is. We were largely created. SHOWstudio was created to make fashion films and to sort of, invent them, because they weren't really, before 2000, they weren't really around because there was no platform for them. TV wouldn't hold them, and cinema, as we just discussed, just doesn't. It's not the right time cycle of nothing else. So we've been trying to work out what a fashion film is, and it is what every single brand wants now. When I started SHOWstudio 25 years ago, when I was commissioned by Levi's or Dior or Lancôme or whoever it would be, they would all ask for a set of photographs. Now, all those brands ask for a fashion film. So it's become the most important currency across fashion advertising. And yet it hasn't got the understanding or recognition. What we've seen in the last 25 years is people doing different attempts at it and trying to make it into something that's like a film. And that hasn't, on the whole, been very successful. So what I'm trying to do at SHOWstudio, what we work on, is trying to, in some way, get fashion films so it feels like something you want to watch again and again and again. That's what I say to you guys a lot, is that we should be a hit factory. We should be making fashion films that people want to watch again and again, just in the same way that if you release a record, you want to release a hit that everybody wants to listen to again and again and again and again. So it's super important to try and understand what a fashion film is. Anyway, we're Chloeing away. We're moving away from Chloe's films. So, Esme, any thoughts or any?
So I think something that's really exciting about AI is it kind of brings this inclusivity to fashion film. At one point, to make a fashion film, you would have needed to rent a studio, you'd need a camera, you'd need a team, you'd need a model. Now you can make a really impactful and powerful fashion film like this just on your laptop at home, which I think is really exciting.
It'll incur the wrath of makeup artists, hairdressers, makeup art, hairdressers, everybody, model agencies. But that's a different conversation, which we will be having at SHOWstudio, and are currently in the middle of having, is what impact AI has on the fashion industry and how to, in some way, bring it in a way which isn't just totally harmful for the fashion industry. Because if you stop employing photographers, makeup artists, hairdressers, models, etc., the fashion industry just falls apart, dies.
Absolutely.
So we have to find a way through that. So AI is a hugely controversial subject, and I don't think, with respect to Chloe and the other filmmakers we want to review, we should probably go through that, which doesn't mean it's not a really important topic. And I'm really hoping that we can, over the next 2 or 3 months, really find space on SHOWstudio to talk about the impact of AI on all things, both technically, filmmaking, which we're looking at here, but also in terms of how the fashion industry deals with AI and what it can bring. I mean, it can be seen as something which is very detrimental, or it can be seen as something which brings lots of opportunity, that elongates the career of a model, that makes the model choose how they want to be represented. There are lots of ways you can give people power to be involved. I think where the problem is when people aren't invited into it. And what I think where the worry is for me is that the artistic community turns its back on AI and says, oh, it's all fake and all horrible and plagiarism and everything else. And then just, if you want bad actors, as they say, kind of move in and keep on. AI's here. It's in everything. It's in our phones, it's in our sat-navs, it's in virtually everything we do. Yeah. So you can't selectively get rid of AI unless you live a completely different non-digital lifestyle, which means not using your satellite nav, not using your phone, not the whole range of things that would be taken out if you're saying I don't want anything to do with AI, because it is so much weaved into everything we do. So I think there needs to be conversations which are just not defending it, which are showing how it can be a creative tool which needs to find its own form of expression. Anyway, again, we're moving away from Chloe's rather beautiful films. That being said, we need to move on. Michael's giving me the hurry up sign. Next film?
So the next one is by a filmmaker called Kwanzaa Kukubo, and it's called If Only You Knew.
She go down, run my bands up, she go down, when I'm in town, I go, when my bands up, she go down, 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 now, we trust each other.
I used to ride horses after, and I on the weekends and compete. And one day when I was training, there was a photographer there, and he said, can I take pictures of you and your sisters? And then he sent them to somebody, and then they contacted me and said, would you like to? And I thought, oh, good, I can earn some.
Just take you further in the film. So just wind on forward down so we can see where it goes.
Would you like the sound?
Yes, please.
Say out to the camera. Okay, fuck it. I've decided I'm not at home right now. My lease ended, so I'm living off vibes, but I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking vlog. I got no idea what the fuck is gonna happen.
Back to my old ways, I relapse. Back to my old ways, I pop tabs. Back to my old ways, I do swag. Back to my old ways, always do swag. Always do swag because I can. Always do swag because it's my language. It's my religion that I'm speaking. I don't give a fuck what you're telling this damage.
Esme?
So there are things that I really like about this film. I really like the mix of the archive and the filmmaker's footage. I really like that shot that was just on the screen where he stood on the staircase. I think that's super beautiful. I like that he's used a lot of interesting editing techniques. I think it's a good idea. It keeps it kind of feeling fresh and interesting. I think he's maybe used one too many techniques. I think sometimes the edit feels a little bit hectic. But I think it's definitely a good idea. I think it's going in a good direction.
Yeah.
I think it could also do with being a little shorter. I think it's a little too long. But yeah, in general, I think it's some really interesting ideas. Again, I really like the use of the archive with the real life footage that he shot. But yeah, I think it could do with being a little shorter and maybe a few less editing techniques and just picking a few motifs that are really strong, really interesting, and using them throughout rather than so many different editing techniques, kind of different graphics and things.
I mean, also we should premise this a little bit of what this film is about and how it's been structured. So as far as I can tell, he's a young model that's gone to Paris to be part of the fashion industry and part of the shows, and he's showing not only the history of fashion modeling, but also kind of his direct experience of it, both in terms of his actual modeling and the social life around it, and the fact that it's being shot in Paris and what's happening in Paris at that moment. So it's quite an interesting collage of real events that are really happening, memories, reflections on the fashion industry, a diary. It's quite multi-layered and multi-stranded, which I thought was really interesting. It is a bit chaotic to watch, a bit hectic to watch, and also because a lot of the footage is kind of iPhone footage at parties and stuff, so it's got a sort of spontaneity to it, but also a kind of lack of filmic quality to it in a sort of craft of filmmaking. But it is what it is. We are where we are. Just, people can create films on their iPhones, and very effective. And what you don't get from having a 35mm piece of film going through a camera, you get in the light sensitivity of the iPhone and the availability and how freely you can move it, etc., etc. So I think in a way it feels very much an insider's point of view of what modeling's about. So that's why I picked it out, because it feels authentic to fashion. A lot of fashion is a sort of projection of people's fantasies, but this actually is an acknowledgement of that projection, but also a really interesting kind of point of view of the people that he's with and how it's working and everything else.
Yeah, there's a nice level of like intimacy to it, I think, because it's not showing just the beautiful bits, it's showing very like normal moments, like when his friend makes a pasta and he just kind of zooms in on a bowl of pasta. That's like quite just every day. I didn't love though the archival footage personally.
You didn't?
No,
because
I like them as. I like the archival footage separate to the film, but I don't think it cut into the film in a way that
it's a tricky beginning.
It didn't cut into the film the way that I would have expected it to. I think it almost could have been more interesting as a vlog, with these beautiful moments of friends, and I don't know, and then the archival footage wasn't sort of saying that much to me personally, but I think it's still a sort of quite interesting, very personal video, which is nice.
Yeah.
I think the use of the word collage that you said earlier on is very accurate. It does feel like you're kind of watching a collage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the purpose of a fashion film is the same purpose as a fashion photograph, which is to make you think, I want to be part of that world, I want to have those clothes, I want to look like that person, etc., etc. And I felt it kind of did do that. It made you feel that this was a desirable lifestyle, however frantic and chaotic.
Yeah, that's true, definitely. Yeah, because it's kind of like you want to be part of this friendship group, whoever they are.
Yeah. Then I like the fact that he roots it in the Christy Turlington clip, which is right at the beginning.
Yeah.
I totally hear you, what you're saying, that it doesn't marry very easily. But I kind of like the fact that he used it. I was impressed at, Linda on the catwalk and all that sort of thing. It's interesting with the personal memories of his that, that's how he started to notice fashion and wanted to be a model. I don't know. It's not clear.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was an interesting way to put across fashion. I guess that if we think that to get a great fashion film, you have to come out wanting very basically the piece of clothing that's in the film. That doesn't come out. But I guess it's not always about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes a fashion photograph is just sending you a mood, just sending you a kind of attitude or aspiration or a way of being that's as important. But it's not doing the thing that the sort of bottom line of a fashion film should do is make you think, I want that skirt, or I want that top, or whatever. It's not doing that. It's more of a interesting way to propose a lifestyle. If that girl had been wearing a dress and then it said where you could get that dress, then I'm into it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's missing, but that's not really his point. People send their films into show studios for lots of different reasons.
Well, I actually read in the email that he sent that he grew up watching lots of documentaries on fashion, including the more visible, including the fashion film, the more visible they make me, the more invisible I become, which is the SHOWstudio fashion film.
Moss one.
Yeah, which is nice.
I think it's good to have those layers. I would just, I would like to have seen slightly more an engagement with a piece of clothing that you would want from this.
Yeah.
So that, you know, but otherwise I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And I, you know, it kind of did that thing of saying it sold you not sold you, but it kind of gives you a lifestyle which is desirable and kind of cool and interesting and feels authentic. You know, in a series of fashion imagery which often doesn't feel authentic, just kind of feels like they're filling pages of magazines or you know, things on people's Instagram and have no other purpose than that. This felt like it touched something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Cool.
we should move on.
Yes.
We should move on.
So the next one is by Nina Casale, and it's sorry about the pronunciation. It's called Tineri Tandem.
Okay. It's because it didn't look like anything else I'd seen, and we get hundreds of fashion films. So find one that sort of feels like it's different, but still feels in some way about fashion. There was something in it which I thought, well, this has got a good, it's not patina, but kind of a good look to it. And it does feel very different from virtually anything else. I love the fact that it just verges into the kind of scrappy, lo-fi abstract. Perfect. If you compare it to early sort of 1930s fashion photography, so somebody like Man Ray, you're going to get the same sort of thing. You know, those people who were making early fashion photography, you know, were discovering their medium, and this person's discovering if I've been critical, it needs to cross over a little bit more, because you have to some degree, get people's tension a bit more and tell them a bit more of something. And I felt this lent a little bit too much into the abstract and not enough into this. I want to know a bit more about this and less about that, but I need that to make me want to know about this, you see what I mean? And I just liked its style, its kind of odd, gritty, referencing old-fashioned photography, but it's still a very contemporary feel to it. I really like lo-fi. You know, SHOWstudio traditionally has been a big supporter of lo-fi filmmaking and lo-fi image making because, you know, we haven't got any money, so you know, you have to. And I don't think that's a problem. I think if you've got very little means, so you haven't got budgets to hire great cameras and crews and everything else, it forces you to be more experimental. It forces you to try and make things work under your terms. And I think that's really, really important. I think the problem with a lot of filmmaking is you get these huge budgets, you get these massive amounts of equipment, and people are trying to do things which really start to get further away from their own personal vision. And so reining things back in and doing things with the equipment, that's beautiful. Doing things with the equipment, that's really lovely. Doing things with equipment that's available to you that you can use, that you don't have to have, you know, DPs and all that sort of stuff, which is, they're all fine, but I like the fact you feel that this person's doing it for herself, by herself, and that she hasn't got a huge team and all this kind of lavish, seductive, you know, actually the rawness of this and the oddness of this is I found much more engaging. What's your thoughts?
I liked it. I thought it was. I liked that it doesn't like that. Like I feel like there's some parts of it that also almost look like photos, like that, like a still, which, I think it was really beautiful. I really loved the use of the sound design, starting off quite like minimal and then becoming really, really chaotic. I felt like when I was watching it, a level of anxiety in parts, which I maybe that was deliberate, maybe not, but it definitely like kept me engaged. I also read that the filmmaker has tinnitus, and it may that heavily sort of influenced the way that she did the sound design, which I thought was quite interesting. And yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was quite abstract. I think, again, I do think it could be maybe shorter, and I think like the abstract moments are really interesting.
Yeah.
But I think maybe more of like a sequence style editing where like we have sort of flickers of abstract and then moments in the room with the dancer that have kind of more like purposeful cuts. I would maybe like to see that. But I think overall, like I was engaged, and I really liked it.
How about you, Esme? What's your likes and dislikes on it?
Yeah, I really liked it, actually. I think it's super beautiful. I really liked her stylistic choices. I think as well what I really like about it is it really forces you to look at shape. So for instance, even the shots with the model dancer moving in the clothes, you can't really see her face. You also can't really see the texture of the clothes. So it really forces you to look at the shaping of the clothing, the shapes the models are making, which I thought was really interesting. And I feel like it also has this sort of timelessness to it.
Yeah.
Even, putting aside the sort of lo-fi feel, if you had told me that you'd found this film online and it was made in the 80s or the 70s, I would have believed you. But I also think it feels new and interesting and could relate to a modern audience. Yeah,
it feels more like the 1930s and 1970s.
Yeah.
It's really, some of it just has a very kind of very sort of last century feel to it in an interesting way. We're interested in if she's saying she has tinnitus. Either you two suffer from tinnitus?
No, I don't actually. Do you?
I do mildly, and it's a pain. But I only have it really, really mildly. And if the filmmaker is saying they have tinnitus and this is, they always have it quite severely or quite, it must be quite a big thing for them. I have very, very, very low level tinnitus. But it's interesting they should say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the sound design was heavily influenced by the fact that she deals with that, so it was quite interesting.
Well, I'm trying to look at, can we have some sound, Holly? Thank you, Holly. I mean, it should be a number of those things that you almost kind of want the rules of fashion filmmaking written down. Not the rules, but there's some basics in it. A fashion film, half of it is the sound. There's the sound design, there's the music, etc., etc. And yet people really forget that. They really don't get it. Not some people do, obviously, but a lot of people forget how important the sound is emotionally. But it's very, very... it's very something we take for granted when we go to the cinema. That the film will be emotionally quite powerful on you. So you might laugh, or you might cry, or you might feel frightened, or whatever it is. But a lot of those emotions are triggered in part by the sound. I mean, an example would be a horror movie. You think of Hitchcock's Psycho. It's like, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
So sound is such a huge part of powerful filmmaking. Yet when it comes to fashion film, people don't quite realize that. So a lot of this is concentrated on the visual, not this particular film. We talked about a filmmaker's tinnitus, and so obviously sound is an important part of her life. But it is one of those things you almost feel like, doing the kind of manual of how to make a fashion film is, for hell's sake, realize that you might just approach it visually, but approach it in terms of the audio, because that's such a thing. We wrestle endlessly with sound here. It's slightly easier now because you can put 90 seconds of any music on Instagram. So that gives us access to world of music. But before that was possible, we were forever asking great composers to make pieces of sound for SHOWstudio. But as I said, we're trying to make hits, and you need the music to be part of that. So if your music is too, as editors, you'll probably know, but because I'm often saying if the music is just weird and alienating, don't think everybody's going to want to watch it. You know, how many people want to listen to experimental electronic music? There are some, but there are very, very few. And most people want to hear hits. Most people want to hear, not hits, but want to hear easy to catch on to. You know, you have to, if you want to do films that nobody's going to watch, or hardly anybody's going to watch, that's fine. But if you're trying to get through to maximum amount of people, and if you're deciding to talk, i.e. you're deciding to make films and communicate, then if you only really want to communicate with a very small amount of people, is that because you don't want other people to know?
Yeah.
Because what you're saying isn't that important? I mean, all art is communication, but film is particularly communication.
Yeah.
So if you want to communicate, so you say, I'm going to make a film to communicate this, this, and this, and this, and you know, why do you want to stop people actively wanting to watch that? If you put a difficult, alienating soundtrack, it might make your imagery seem odder or more difficult or back up that part of it, but it won't seduce people into wanting to watch it. So they'll flick it on and they'll flick it off. So it is tricky to kind of get the sound on a fashion film correct.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are
Into the next.
slightly slipping behind our self-imposed schedule here.
Okay, so
William
next,
Archibald.
Yeah, Simon William Archibald. This one's called A Portrait of Lea.
Good, what, sorry?
A Portrait of Lea or Serendipity.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And it takes a while to get going. Do we have any sound on this, Holly?
It's silent at the beginning, this one, I
Okay.
think. It comes in a second.
Nice. To do with Simon's film. I loved this when I saw it. I really loved it, and partly because I'm sitting going through a lot of fashion films, one after another, and trying to find the things that I like in them. And I come across a film like this, and I just think it really inspires me. It inspired me in a way, not so much as a fashion film, though it could be. I just think if I had to do an interview for SHOWstudio, I had to ask you guys to go out and film an interview with somebody, and you came back with this, I would be so touched by it because it's such a sensitive film. You know, I think it's gorgeous. It almost makes me want to cry just because it is so sensitive in its view of life. You know, this sort of beautiful out of focusedness, the grey that they put on it, the putting going really close into her mouth. You know, the filmmaker just proposes this person, whoever they are. I think it's Leo, isn't it, in the film? It proposes them in such a great way, sort of appealing way. You really feel empathy for the subject just because of the craft and the skill, and it opens up and it's snowing. I love it.
It's so romantic.
Super great. But imagine if this was, a portrait of Kim Kardashian or a portrait of, whoever else you want, Zara Sultana, whoever. It would be a fantastic bit of filmmaking of them because you feel so much empathy with their character and their, who they are as a person. I thought it was a great film, really, really lovely. Doesn't hit any of the markers I would normally ask for. It's not a fashion film. They're not proposing any fashion in it, and it doesn't deal with the whole soundtrack thing. Although the sound is actually very cleverly brought in.
Yeah.
And the way that sound comes in, that piece of classical sound, It's really beautiful. And the slow beginning, although, you know, because we've got a sort of time limit on this, so I'm trying to get through them. But the gentleness of it, you know, in a world which, I'm going to go off into one, in a world which is so difficult at the moment and so anti-empathetic and very kind of, you know, crushing of people and, you know, not about the delicate sensitivity. I mean, the way the filmmaker, you know, she does some gesture with her fingers, which is, I mean, we all do gestures. And, you know, it's such a great revealing where, you know, when I ask you guys to film the panels here, I'm always saying to you, look at their hand gestures, look at how they, you know, how they move, because how people move in a space is a very beautiful thing if you observe it, and he does that really beautifully. I was really touched by this, really thought it was great, and thought I will come back to Simon and ask him to do something for us. Anyway, how did it go down with you guys?
I was surprised that because of what you said earlier, like it doesn't hit the marks of like the fashion film sort of thing that we're usually looking for. I was surprised, but then when I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of what we talk about in terms of interviews and stuff. Yeah. And the shallow depth of field obviously is like very important and sort of intimate and personal. And we were just discussing before we sat down to chat, like how women sort of like moving it can sometimes be captured in really like unorganic way, whereas this is kind of the opposite of that. It's very organic. It's conversation. I did really like it. I would love to see this like sort of, I guess it was like a moment between two people. Love to see where that can be pushed, like if like this sort of style of, and that was interesting, that kind of like posturized time, like the frame rate went a bit weird. Yeah. And I don't know why, but I was like, that's, I don't know, an interesting sort of element as well, where it just kind of jitters. But that's quite nostalgic as well, because it kind of like leans towards old filmmaking where there was just a lower frame rate on your cameras and there was that kind of, nostalgic element. But yeah, I did like it. It is very sort of different to a lot of other fashion. I guess it's not a fashion film, it's more of just like a moment. But
but it just depends on the subject. I'd love to see what Simon would do. You know, if you put the same girl in a piece of Balenciaga or a piece of Simon Rocha or something. You know, this would be beautiful. If I was Simon Rocha watching this, I would book this person to do my film. Yeah. It's so sensitive. Simon Rocha's clothes are so sensitive, so delicate, so about the same sort of nuance as this is. You know, I would perfect for. I mean, and quite a few other different designers. You know, it touches on such beauty in a very easy way. It doesn't feel heavy or complicated or difficult. It's just about somebody seeing. And
sorry. Another thing I wanted to add was that moment there where it almost looks like they lift the camera up to like check the settings on the camera or something. They're just like, they haven't cut, which is really interesting. I feel like it's borderline like unedited, which is kind of, an interesting approach, I think.
Yeah, I love the like drifting camera. I think that's super nice. Like the first shot after we go to black and the music comes in is really long. Then we go from her eyes to her mouth and then down to her hands. I think that's really beautiful. I think there should be more space for that kind of sort of free moving filming for sure. Yeah, it's kind of clumsy, but not in a bad way. Yeah. In a kind of like, It kind of gives you a different perspective. Like, as you said, when the camera goes up and you kind of see the ceiling, that's something that you would never normally see in a film, but is kind of beautiful, that sort of blurred ceiling. Yeah.
I thought it was full of great poetic moments. And it is, I was trying to think if it resembles how we feel when we're talking to somebody. So if you met one of your friends or a lover in a cafe or somebody who you were super kind of emotionally invested in, whether how you see them is like that. Because our eyes do not work like cameras. It's going to bring in meta glasses. But anyway, but our eyes take life in a very different way to filmmaking. And I was quite interested to know whether these sort of, because they're zeroing in on things, little details of people, which you kind of, I think we do when we talk to each other, that feels a bit like how we register stuff. I thought it was full of real beauty and kind of sensitivity. Excuse me. And I like, I love the fact that it's snowing outside and it's sort of revealed halfway through, and there's a kind of Saul Leiter picture just waiting to be seen. If I was talking to Simon directly, I'd say there's a Saul Leiter picture happening outside. Just pay a little bit more notice when you go past it because it's beautiful. It depends. It could be Saul. It could be Simon's girlfriend. It could be somebody but you feel that he has a sensitive vision, whatever he's going to be looking at. I don't think it's just his relationship to this person. It might be. We photograph people we love in different ways to photograph people we have no feelings for. So this would imply, by watching it, that there's a real relationship between her and him. Anyway, well, I loved it. So.
Yeah, nice.
Moving on.
Moving on to, so this one is made by a filmmaker called Julius Berger, and it's called Conversations.
Okie dokie.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, man, so like I was saying, I was at the park last week, sitting on the bench chilling with the homies, and I look up into the sky, and the sun and the moon is just chilling there together. It's possible. You took a science class, you know what's possible. My mama put me in school, I'm educated. I went to school from 1st to 12th grade. What are you talking about? What you mean you don't believe me? You think I'm dumb? I'm not crazy, I'm not on 1st to 12th grade. What are you talking about? Get shit out.
People are losing it.
I know. That's New York for me, though. I could have sworn I seen a dude talking to himself the other day about the sun and the moon could be in the sky at the same time.
It's crazy. Why would you do that?
Like you said, people are losing it.
Oh, only part 1 and part 2.
That's
I was hoping for a part 3.
Yeah.
Well, again, just to launch straight into this, there's a old Rolls Royce video. Rolls Royce, if you don't know, was a band that was very popular in the 1970s. And one of their hits is a film, they did a soundtrack for a film called Car Wash. And there's a scene in it where this beautiful girl with an afro walks into, I can't remember what, coffee shop or something. And as soon as I saw this film, I thought of that film. And it is one of those things, I've gone back and taken stills from that particular video of Rolls Royce, the soundtrack of the Rolls Royce film, so many times, just because it looks so great. And I just thought, that's exactly what that reminds me of, and I love it. I love New York of the 1970s. I love film of LA. I love all of that kind of world. And I just, so I was seduced straight away into it. I guess we have all touch points here. I love New York. From New York in the 1970s, love it. Love Tokyo, love Paris in the 1930s, et cetera, et cetera. So there are kind of seductive visions that, people use. I love this fact that she's talking to his shadow. That was great. But as a fashion film, I thought it worked really cleverly, especially the first scene, less, to be honest, it's going to be less the second scene, but the first scene, because he comes and does this fantastic, runs in, looks amazing, sets off all those references within me. Beautifully filmed, love the editing in it, click, 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 click. Love him talking, etc. I kind of want to know who he is, etc. So I'm seduced into it straight away. And then she walks in, and it becomes a fashion film. And that cut, allowing her to cut the scene like that, here she comes any minute now, I just thought it was really clever and really kind of just, boom.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's about her and he's just set up the moment for her to walk in and look beautiful. I was really, really clever. As a fashion film, I loved it. That's the sort of, you want to look like her, you want to have that coat, you want to be in that life, etc., etc. You want those heels, you want your hair like that. Yeah. All perfect. I mean, no, but do you see what I mean? It's.
That was my first thought when she walked in. I was like, I want that coat.
Yeah, there you go.
It's doing its job.
Works fashion film, and that's great. And her attitude is authentic and believable, and everything else. I was really impressed with it, and I just made me excited and happy, and thought I'd love to employ this filmmaker. Of course, one always wants to see more of it and push it further, etc., etc. But it just sort of touched on something for me and also I felt it was very assured. A lot of the films that we get sent feel just like they're young filmmakers trying to get into feature filmmaking and thinking, well, doing a fashion film is a kind of soft way in, like doing music videos, a kind of soft way in. And actually, they don't care about the fashion, never consider the fashion. They're not really considering all the sort of things that make a great fashion film. They're just showing camera technique and trying to do a big cinematographic thing so that, they could be employed as a director. And whereas we're looking for fashion filmmakers, not just people who make film directors. So I thought this was very good. It touched on really good aesthetic touch points for me. Framing's great, etc., etc. Esme, I'm talking too much. So what did you think?
So I think the filmmaker did a really great job of world building. The color grade, the way it's shot, the models they've used. It really immerses you in this world. It feels all really intentional again, the colour grade, the shots, it feels like everything has been done with a purpose and with intentionality. So you really get immersed in this world. I would have liked to have actually seen another part.
Yeah, part 3.
Yeah, part 3. I loved the parts. I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah.
However, I would have liked a part 3 with maybe more of a rounded ending.
Yeah, it does kind of leave you kind of...
It feels, like the beginning of something.
Yeah.
Not the whole thing.
Yeah, I would be happy with part 1, not part 2. But then if I'm not going to get a part 3, I'm happy with part 1. There's another great film from 1970s called Shaft. If you ever get a chance to watch Shaft, look, what's the name of the actor in... not being able to remember people's names. There's a fantastic opening sequence in Shaft where you've got this black American cop and he's kind of 1970s and it's all kind of super kind of New Yorky. And there's a traveling shot which travels along a street in New York, and is it William Roundtree? Anybody know? We're going to fact check.
We're Googling.
Richard Roundtree. Fantastic, I was reasonably close. So it tracks along New York Street, and then Richard Roundtree is this kind of New York cop, comes up the subway stairs, and it travels with him. I just think it's brilliant. It's that sort of thing that makes me really excited about life.
Yeah.
Which I guess is what you want to get from this. So I sort of felt that this, had a personal resonance for me because of my Rolls Royce video fetish, but also just because I just wanted to see more by this person. What's his name? Julius Berger?
Julius Berger.
Yeah, Julius, come on, we want to see more of your films. Make more quickly. We should go through and ask these people to do fashion films for SHOWstudio's 25th anniversary. Maybe that's a different topic for a different time. But really, I loved it. So, okay,
Nice.
Let's move on.
Okay, so the next one is by Ellison Bartholomew, and it's called Sea of Trees.
they go. Okay. Just so everybody knows watching, all of these films complete and uninterrupted by us will be on SHOWstudio. Esme, what was your feelings?
I think there's some really beautiful shots in this film. I love the zoom in of the flower at the beginning. It really reminded me of a shot in this film called The Zone of Interest.
Right.
I also love the shot of the apples on the floor, you know, as they're kind of rolling out of shot. I also love a shot of the woman in the sort of big grey dress in front of the sofa. It really made me want to wear that dress. I thought it looked super beautiful. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more sequence cutting.
What do you mean?
So an example is, I think it's at 26 seconds in, you see a wide and then it cuts to a close-up of her face.
Right, okay.
And I would have liked to see a bit more of that cutting where you're kind of seeing cutting on an action.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be throughout. It doesn't need to be like every cut is moving on to the next, but I think it would have been nice to see a little bit of that in this film to kind of help with the pacing and help move it along.
Wonderful. Nicola?
I feel like when you were talking about things that you love and how they're like seduce you, I love tartan and kilts. Yeah. And like the opening shot, I was just like, oh, that just looks so good. So I was kind of in, like, I just love that. I like the use of also the way like that shot is composed. Like I think they've done their sort of composition that's upside down. Like they've played and been a bit creative in terms of framing and composition, which is interesting. That kind of feels almost claustrophobic. I guess it's a lot of sort of women experiencing like quite an emotional time, and there's a lot of tears and stuff, which is, I think it was interesting. I do feel kind of similarly with Esme. I feel like some shots were kind of put together, and I think there could have been more like purpose sort of behind the editing. But I do think like that is so beautiful. That dress just looks like amazing. The whole everything. I think it almost a lot of the frames look like portraits, which is quite nice. I really liked it.
And I was intrigued by its delicateness. I sort of noticed now watching the films back that I'm picking up on similar things in different films by different filmmakers. There's a lot of emotion in this. I mean, that sort of heaving of the shoulders, the fact she's got all of her cast crying at the end. All those sorts of things are super interesting. I think if she's going to go down this route, my advice, which she's not asking for, but my advice, I would say, is you need to get there's a slight kind of, the craft of filmmaking or the craft of image making just needs to be elevated a little bit more. If you're going to go down here and you want to do this sort of shot, there are other people who you might want to look at because they've achieved it more successfully. The problem with photography and filmmaking is because it's the opposite of painting and sculpture. With painting, you start off with an empty canvas and you only put on what you want to see on that canvas. With photography and therefore filmmaking, you're stuck with everything and you're trying to take things away. And you take things away just to be left with the only thing you really want to be showing people by lighting, by grading, by cropping, all those sorts of things, by depth of field. And that's what I mean by the craft of photography or craft of filmmaking, which I think sort of, this filmmaker needs to kind of look at a bit more. If you're going to do this, if you're going to do those flowers against that wall on that table, I think, I'm not trying to criticize it, it just can be better in that genre, and she needs to look, I don't know, it's a Shiri, I'm so sorry. They need to look at other examples. I mean, that's gorgeous. And there are some really gorgeous shots, but I just feel sometimes it gets a bit too real. And by real, I mean, we are seeing things that I don't think she would want us to see. If she was painting that, she wouldn't paint in some of the information. So therefore, her craft as a filmmaker is to get rid of everything that you don't want people to see. And that can just be too much depth of field. I push you guys to work with very, very minimal depth of field at SHOWstudio whenever we can, partly because it gets rid of a lot of the sort of daft things you don't want to see. It's not that everything has to be perfect or everything has to be, it just has to be, you have to be able to control what you are showing your audience by the skill of your particular art form, and in this case, filmmaking. But you know, I think there are certain devices you learn by being a filmmaker and a photographer and et cetera, which help your ability to be able to show just what you want to see. Because you have got that problem. See, that shot, which is the opening shot, I think it's great. But when I first saw it, I thought, that could be so much better. Which doesn't, I'm sorry, but it's not, I hate criticizing people's work, so it comes across. It's not to do that. I would, out of 360 films, we've picked, this one to show you. It's because it's already great. Yeah. But I guess one of the reasons people send films into show studios because they want to have some feedback on what they do, and there aren't that many opportunities to get honest feedback in life. So nothing we say or I say should be taken as overall critical or trying to make the filmmaker feel less, but trying to hopefully, to give my opinion or our opinion, to make their films better and help them. There's just some of these things I feel like you could do it better. There's too much information in that shot of the tear. Just concentrate on the tear, get rid of all the other stuff. You know where it comes from, you know the person who's crying. So it's already been established. For me, there's just a bit too much involuntary information in each frame. But that's craft. It's a craft of lighting, it's a craft of cropping, of panning, motion, all those sorts of things. They can just be improved. Everything can be improved on. Every single image I've ever created can be improved on. So there we go. Anyway.
Yeah.
Great.
Who we got next?
Right, so the next one is Derek Johnson. This one's called Max and Tish, Love by Chance.
Welcome, Jaden. Thank you for sharing. I believe everyone went except for you, Max. Can you make sure your camera is on and introduce yourself, please?
I'm Max. Been at Tech Pros for about a year and a half. My current role is product design, as well as assisting with visual merchandising online. So, which is my first job out of college. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yes, Max, you sound very happy. Well, there we have it. I'm glad everyone's here. We have a lot to go over, so I ask that you please put your mics on mute. You can save questions until the end, so make sure you jot them down. It is Friday, I know. We all are ready to log off and enjoy the weekend, but I just want to brief you on the feedback we've received and set us up for next week. A lot of the information will be tedious, but it is vital. We've started off strong in the first quarter, but now not so much. But that's okay, it's time to catch up. You guys will also have access to the slideshow. To begin, we're taking a wholesale approach while trying to create a memorable experience for our customers, one that will knock them off their feet.
When we small out in the morning, hey, yo, baby say, when we small out in the morning, you can hear your baby say, well, come on and love me, baby, it'll always be that way. When we small out in the morning, you can hear your baby say, yeah, yeah, when we small out in the morning, you can hear your baby sigh. Well, come on and love me. It'll be just you and I. Well, in the wee small hours of the morning, you can hear your baby sigh. Well, in the wee small hours of the
Hey, Gramps.
Max?
Yeah, I'm here.
Is this Max?
Yes, it's me, Max. Your grandson?
Oh, Max, my boy. What a surprise.
You called me, Grandpa. Is everything all right?
Yes, everything's well. I've heard you're getting married soon.
No, Gramps. That's Michael, not me. Oh,
You took so long, but you got there.
wrong sibling. Michael's getting married.
Yeah, Michael.
Ah. No, I wanted to go forward on it, please.
Do I always smoke? Why would you ask me that? I mean, no.
That sounds to me like a distinction without a difference.
You bite your fingernails, right?
Yeah, okay.
Well, I'm assuming you don't love doing so. It's habitual.
I mean...
Thank you very much. The unedited, I'm sorry, us not interrupting or moving this film, the whole version of this film will be on SHOWstudio is what I was trying to say. When I came across this, I was a bit, didn't know quite what to expect from it, and started watching it and thought, it feels a little bit too slick. But then actually, it's partly because it says that thing at the beginning, which I always find, whatever. But I thought it was charming. I thought it was clever and charming. I was charmed by the characters in it. I liked when you showed the guy, because it's Max, getting ready, because there's a lot of fashion happening in that. I really liked his editing and his framing and all his moving the frame around and et cetera, et cetera. It was clever, it was technically well done, pretty seamless. And I just liked, I can't show you here because the story takes too long to unfold, but I liked the storyline between the two of them. I thought she was great. And it was just quite something I normally would shy away from. So I normally would say, in a fashion film, you shouldn't have a narrative. It should just be about the clothes. But this filmmaker, Derek, has managed to use quite a good narrative device. He's telling about the relationship between these two, or the family relationship between these two people, but actually managing to sell quite a good look for both of them. You kind of, he looks kind of great, she looks kind of great, and you think, okay, so this is a fashion film then, because I want that fashion. Yeah. And it is sort of set around this narrative. Because it's charming, I was seduced into it. I like people being in love. I like people, I'm empathetic to people who have a kind of, you can see the proposed happiness of this couple, and I like that. Why not? So I was kind of seduced into it, and I think it's got an unpretentiousness in it, sort of stripped back, no real set, it's just a cove. Again, I kind of like that, but I thought it worked quite well in terms of proposing a life with no actual sort of real sort of locations and stuff. Anyway, I was sort of charmed by it. I think that is to do in part with the casting. Both the people in it are super kind of, they look great, I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I was sort of, went against my normal mantra about you shouldn't have any narrative in a fashion film. It's just about the clothing. The narrative's in the clothing, not in your film, or shouldn't be about what your film's about. So anyway, I like things that make me have to reconsider my position, and this film did for a while. And I just think it was kind of, I thought it was a seductive, emotionally charming film. That was a very bad review of his film, so sorry, Derek. We can do better. Nicola, help me out here.
I don't know. I didn't connect with. I think there are parts of this film that I really love. The fashion is probably the biggest one. I think they look great in every single scene, and that's it's just really nice to see. I think they're both obviously also beautiful, and I think the set design and everything was been really well thought out. But I just didn't this sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but it didn't really like speak to me as a film. Like in a way, like I didn't feel a connection to them as people, as characters, and I love like sort of those like romance and stuff as well, like in films, but I just didn't like connect deeply with them at any point. And I think there were some like technical like film tools that were used that I found like interesting, but there was some really, really good ones, but the jump cuts I found like a bit jarring. But then there was like I like when they've kind of copied him at the beginning 3 times, and the use of sound was quite good, especially when the train arrives and they kind of blow a fan in his face, and there's literally nothing there, but they've kind of given you a world to create, sort of thing, which is interesting. But no, I didn't have like an emotional connection in a big way.
Esme, what was your?
Yeah, there are some things that I really love. Like I love the fact that it's all set in this one world. The kind of blank space I think is really nice. I liked some of the stylistic choices. I liked the sort of 3 versions of them getting ready. There's a couple crossfades that I actually quite liked. And yeah, like the train going past, there's like really like nice, clever touches. However, I kind of felt the same. I thought there were some really sweet, nice moments. I liked the kind of zoom in where you see him pass the umbrella. I thought that was really sweet. But it just didn't evoke much emotion in me. I think I didn't become super invested in the characters or their love story. And I guess it's called Love by Chance. It is a love story. But I think it's a really interesting idea. And I think it was really imaginative. But yeah, it just didn't quite evoke emotion in me, didn't quite make me feel convinced by their love.
I think for me it was something in the kind of the simplicity of it which I liked, and the proposal, of these 2 characters, and kind of quite, playful sort of scene mixing and cutting from one to. I thought it was playful. I think I'm trying to be understanding what you were less keen on it. I think it's because it's a bit too lengthy in a way. It should feel like it should be shorter, feel like it should be a bit more condensed. Because you're asking people to look at your stuff. It's part of, when you sit and you watch these films begin, they take a long time to begin. I'm sort of thinking I'd have probably moved on by now if I wasn't invested in looking at this filmmaker's work. You have to be able to realise that you're entertaining an audience, and that it shouldn't be so self-indulgent that people have to emotionally invest energy into watching your film. You need to be, just another particular pet peeve, iron your curtains, or steam your curtains. If you're going to do this minimal presentation, which you do pretty successfully, it's better if you make it really great. Just the lighting could be stepped up a bit, the props could be stepped up a little bit, but I think they've done a pretty good job at, because I've had people, that I've got a film, in very similar circumstances, and it's quite hard to make them look that handsome or beautiful. When they're walking around and they're moving, and the direction of this is pretty great. I just think maybe a slightly more emotional engagement would be better. And if you're going to do things like this, which are very minimal, very cut back, and pretty successful, you can do it better. That can be stepped up a little bit more. But I don't want to fall into criticising films. Films are really hard to make. I should imagine this is probably self-funded, though I don't know. And I think it's clever. Director of photography, Tom Ford? Not that Tom Ford. There's something that just feels like it can be. It's a great idea. It needs to be stepped up. It can get much, much, much better with more care taken, more precision, etc., etc. If you're saying to somebody, I'm just going to imply the world just by this one carpet. Then get the right carpet. Spend the time to steam the curtains properly. Just do things a bit better. It's not very forgiving, this environment, for people's scrutiny of what you're putting in there. It can just be a bit better. And you should look at look at my 100 photographers and go through those photographers and look at what it does. There's somebody's name I'm trying to remember, and my usual ability to not remember people's names. There are people that do this stuff really, really, really well, have done in photography. You need to look at their work and see what you can do in a minimal environment like this and how much better it can be. But that being said, it caught my eye in amongst hundreds of fashion films. I think it's pretty successful, and I'm excited to see what this person does again.
Totally.
Amazing.
Anyway, we've got to go on.
The next film we're going to look at is made by a person called Yong-Ki Lee, and the film is called Omnitrans.cam.
Ollie, are you over 18?
Nearly.
Hey guys, it's been a long time to see you. You guys want to see some hot shoe? I guess, yeah.
Hey girl, what's up? Are you close by? You're next.
Hey, I just had the most nauseous nightmare ever. I was stripping into a man.
First of all, ew. Secondly, are you still in bed? Move your ass here ASAP.
To go, but just for the end. I'll tell you why I like this. Is that me? Is that them? Is that my phone or not?
I think it's yours.
Is it my phone? I'm so sorry. I'm very rude. But apt for this film. Probably them phoning me now.
Yeah.
There's something, quite often we've done it on SHOWstudio, where you acknowledge the sort of aesthetic of the day, if you want. So if it's Zoom or if it's face filters on Instagram or whatever it is. So you acknowledge the kind of visual language of the culture of the day, which is essentially what one should be doing. So one's not living in the 1970s, one's not living in the 1930s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we should be looking at our culture today. And a lot of people, the way they engage with the world is through things like OnlyFans or kind of online dating or a whole bunch of kind of online life and personas and different visuals, et cetera, different ways of looking, gender fluid, all those sorts of things are very much of today's culture. And I quite like the fact that this film engaged in those. And it also, I thought, was quite an interesting thing that, we're broadcasting out to the world now live, not, go out to YouTube, we've got a webcam up there. There is another side to that. There are, hopefully, other people on the other side of that. And it just touched on that. It touched on that. If we're online, it's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
And although this is setting it up as a slightly sinister two-way thing, that you've got this kind of actually quite scary character that appears halfway through, that the main person doesn't quite seem to know is a nightmare or not. I thought it was something quite interesting. I think you like horror films more than I do, but there is something in that. There was some genuine. I felt a genuine bit of fear at that moment in this film, which isn't bad. But I just like the engagement with contemporary culture as a sort of, using all those different things. Ages ago, when the webcam and live streaming started to become a thing, I did a film called Don't Bother to Knock with an actress called Asia Argento, which is a bit the same premise, dealing with your audience as part of your film. So in Don't Bother to Knock, Asia Argento was asking her audience questions, and they were a real audience. They were really sending back questions, which then influenced how the film developed. I like that. I think our media has been so monodirectional since it began. So, virtually everything you do, you are talking to your audience and they're not talking back to you. So a painting sits on a wall of a gallery and deliberately talks to the audience, but the audience can't have any interaction with it. Same thing for photography, and when we used to work for magazines, you put your work in a magazine, the audience is mute. Along comes the internet, and all of a sudden the audience is an active part in the piece of work. And I like this sort of acknowledgement of that in this, and also the sort of, the real kind of, if you want, oddness of that. That you're having these relationships with people you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And it talks, it'll go and play into kind of, headlines of kind of, stalking and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is that nobody's really dealing with this way of working. We've had for centuries this relationship as artists, we've had a relationship to our audience, which is mute. So the artist, if you want, has a slightly kind of arrogant position. They put their art on a pedestal and it talks down to their audience who are not able to say anything back. So that's why I kind of like this film, that it's resituated that conversation in contemporary culture and in a way started to raise ideas of the participation of an audience in a film.
Yeah.
I really liked this.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I really like the use of music. As she leaves the flat and you kind of get a cut of her walking out the door, another cut of her walking, a final one, and then as she walks up to the decks and the music comes in, I thought it was super powerful. And then when she sort of sees this figure coming towards her, kind of getting louder and louder, I thought it was a really nice length as well. It felt really engaging the entire time. The filmmaker actually sent us an email with the film kind of really breaking everything down from the cinematography to the storyline. And when you read through this, you can really see that every decision they've made is like super intentional. And I think that really comes across in making this like a really solid film. And I think the storyline comes across really well. Sometimes you'll watch something and you think, oh, I need to read the description to kind of understand what just happened. Where I feel like the storyline, comes across really well. It's really digestible.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Nicola, any thoughts?
I loved it. I feel like just the opening sequence for me was so, I was like, what is happening? the way the sound, the like roar. I mean, that's really good. Yeah, I just feel like it was very scary and ominous and intense. And then, but I was just so hooked. And then I kind of like the idea of like these kind of personas that we have online, and like who were being it on sort of multiple platforms and stuff, and what we're sort of putting out into the world. And and then I just love like the horror element. The sound design was great. I loved the end sort of fight scene. It was like a bit kind of kitsch, but in like a really like cool way. They really like lent. I felt like it was a very like self-aware film. That's what I liked about it. I think it knew what it was, and it was like leaning into it and not trying to be something else, which is nice. It felt really, I loved it.
Yeah. Well, good. Okay.
Amazing.
Let's move on, see if we can get a few more through.
On to the next one. So this one is by Mia Raz. And it's called An Exploration of Self-Liberation.
Just be yourself.
Good. Done?
Yeah, that's the...
Are there more films by this filmmaker, or was that?
Yeah.
Let's have a quick look. I just want to understand what she's doing. Okay, Holly, give us another brief clip of the next film we can. Okay. So let's leave it there for a second. Why I wanted to show this film is because I was a little intrigued by it. Do we know from what they've written, is it a music video? Is it a singer showing us films that she's made of herself? What are we looking at?
There wasn't a huge description with this one. So I think she is creative director, visual director, and music artist, Mia. So she has created the song as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought it was an interesting poetical prospect. I think the other two films are interesting because they're so random.
Yeah.
They're so not at all to do with the first film, other than I guess it's the same person. But the first film, I thought this was really, it's that thing about doing a fashion film that's got no clothes in it, and also the idea of nudity and how that is so whitewashed from our society and our culture at the moment. You know, people are just terrified of naked bodies. And I like the fact that she was nude in the street or nude wherever she was. I like it because it's such a, you know, and she's standing there and having a croissant and coffee looking at herself, but nobody's, and it's just the world's going by. We did a film on SHOWstudio about 2012 where we had the model Raquel Zimmerman walking naked through Selfridges at night and then walking through the same path to Selfridges in the daytime with the people in there. And it reminded me of why I felt that was the exciting thing to do, because we are really, I just find it really sad that we are so terrified now of naked body, especially the female naked body, as if it's such an affront to us. And it really starts to, you know, I thought it was such a confident and natural and unsexualized way of talking about this girl and her body. Having said that, it looks more sexualized now. But I just thought it was something really kind of powerful in how she was so happy to be in that state, in that place. And it just felt to me quite refreshing to see that. Otherwise, I think we're just sending such an awful message out. You know, it's a demonization of what we really are, the demonization of the female body, the demonization of nudity, the demonization of sexuality, et cetera, et cetera. And I find that really scary and worrying. And so just have a film like this where the main person in it, and especially if it's the same person filming it as is in it, which I don't know if it is, but I suspect it might be. I felt that was you know, she's chosen to show herself that way, et cetera, and the kind of, you know, the environment she's in is all fashion brands, but yet she's naked. You know, it just started to feed into a few questions, and it's quite, if you look at her expressions in it and the emotion she's delivering in it, it isn't the emotion, it's not about a sort of, what's the word, salacious filming of the female body. It's actually quite, I thought it was quite, she seems very brave and confident and empowered and all those sorts of other words. It didn't feel like a sort of male gaze on the female body and a salacious representation of it. So anyway, that was the reason I picked it. I kind of like things that make me think a little bit differently about what I'm seeing. How do you guys feel about that?
I think that in that film she looks quite like content and happy to walk the streets like that, and then in the other one where she's taking the jackets off, it's like quite an emotional, like tearing off the exterior, and it's like towards the end, Holly, if you just go like forward, it kind of becomes like really sad, and there's like an element of bravery, of becoming totally vulnerable with the viewer. And I did like that message of like the strength that it takes to do that, and how important and how beautiful it is and how it should be shown. And yeah, I like the messaging. As for the other film where she's walking the streets, I do like the sort of concept of it. I think there was parts of it that felt like slightly on the nose for me, like the song was saying like, I think the words were talking about taking your clothes off and stuff, and then I think that it could be sort of it's more subtle, but I do like agree with kind of the overall messaging, and I did like, you know, it's quite like beautiful as a film, and I think especially the beginning with the lighthouse and the sort of light is all very lovely.
Well, she does. If you look at her expression here, I think it's quite interesting what she's thinking, or what she's looking at, how she's being, etc., etc. It doesn't feel like a Newton picture. If you look at a Helmut Newton picture of a woman in wherever this would be, south of France or wherever it is, it'd be so much more sexualized, and so much more, you know, that kind of male gaze and presentation of female form, etc., etc. Whereas this feels a lot calmer and not so. Yeah, I don't know.
And even her hair and her makeup and so it's quite like a natural present. You know, she's not done up in any type of way. She's just like very natural, which is interesting.
Yeah. Thoughts?
I especially like the shot where she's kind of walking and then you can kind of see she hears something and she looks over her shoulder. I thought that was pretty. And then you kind of see what's going past her, which is a bike in the reflection of the window behind her. I thought that was nice. And I like the little nod to Breakfast at Tiffany's when she's outside.
Oh, really?
I'm assuming it is.
Yeah, well, let's have it,
Yeah, when she's having
Super
her
happy for that.
croissant.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I did like it. Yeah, definitely. I thought it was really interesting.
Good. Okay, well, I think we're drawing to an end, unfortunately, because, Michael, can we squeeze another one in, or? Just, okay. All right, let's see if we can get one more in.
All right. Tobias Hutzler. This one is called Brainwaves.
Come on, Tobias. Great. So, do you guys want to lead on this one?
Yeah, I think what I kind of found interesting was like the texture of her fabric and then the visuals. I liked the kind of like visual sort of marriage of this shot with her fashion and then the chosen sort of abstract shots of like vibrations and then the music with it kind of, that music could kind of give you like goosebumps, which would give you texture on your skin, and then there was the texture. I feel like it was just a super textural film, and it all kind of felt like things were sort of very deliberately put together, which was nice. I think I read in the email that person sitting in the chair there is an artist and musician battling ALS, and has pioneered new ways to create music, first through eye movement and now through brain waves, which is really kind of fascinating.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I liked it. I think, I think I liked it.
Come back to
I think I liked it.
What did you think?
I thought the beginning was super strong. I loved this shot cutting to black. I thought that was really nice. And the dance sequence at the end, I totally agree with Nicola. It kind of feels like the sort of piece of fabric she's wearing is moving in the same way.
Yeah.
And her movement is also kind of replicating this movement, which I think is really nice.
Yeah.
This is probably a little bit of a personal thing, but the music that comes in after the beginning, I wasn't a massive fan of, but again, that might just be my taste.
It's very dancey, like techno.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it. And again, with the dance sequence at the end, I would have liked to have seen just like a couple of sequence cuts, just kind of cutting on a movement. But in general, I think it's like really beautiful. I think the color grade's really lovely. It's got a really nice texture to it. Yeah, I liked it too.
I wonder what people think, because we know what studio is. So these films, there's been a couple of them in this selection, which take place in a studio. And we know, SHOWstudio, we know what the studio is. But I wonder how much that space is recognized in public, how much people realize what it is. This sort of neutral space where things happen, which is, what we are, what SHOWstudio is. That's very much the world that we live in, that funny nothing space, which allows a presentation. I think that, again, is quite new in terms of the culture. You can't imagine that being a space sort of 50 years ago. It just wouldn't look like that. You wouldn't know what it was. Anyway, I'm slightly digressing, but I liked her movement. Again, it's one of those sorts of things where I'm saying don't use dancers. I think this person probably is a dancer, but I liked her movement, and I liked it because it felt, as you said, it brought something that felt in keeping out of the texture of the cloth, and the piece of clothing that was chosen felt a very good replica of the sound waves or brain waves that the musician was showing. There's an elegance to it. A subdued color palette. The shots are all good. The lighting's good in terms of getting across that feeling of texture and also still looking really beautiful. You can tell pretty much instantly when you start watching a fashion film whether it's going to be any good or not. And that's often to do with lighting, because if the person can't see how bad the lighting is, chances are they can't really sort of present the clothing in a great way. But when somebody like this obviously has a keen sense of lighting, a keen grasp of the art of fashion, of filmmaking, you're sort of, it's like you're hoping to have a poem from somebody who can't really speak or doesn't really have much linguistic grasp. So when you see a film, you can usually tell within the first sort of 10 or 20 seconds where it's going to go and how good or bad it's going to be. And I would say to filmmakers, that's your craft. You really have to raise your game on, I saw over 350, 360 fashion films. We've chosen 10 or 12 here to show you. Although all of those fashion films had something, most of them, I want to sort of sit down with them and say, you've got to get your craft, your skill set better. You have to work at this. You can't just expect to pick up your camera, pick up your phone, pick up whatever it is, and make a great fashion film. It takes effort and time and understanding of light and understanding of movement. Start to look at photographers and filmmakers from the past and to see what they've done, and start to understand what the craft of filmmaking is about. It's how you talk. So again, I say, if you were going to be somebody who's going to recite poetry, you have to have, command of the sound of your voice. You have to have understanding of the words. That's your craft. If you're going to be a painter, you have to have some craft, even if it's a naive craft, but you have to have some craft. And I far too often see fashion films that were just the person hasn't invested their time and their energy into crafting their medium. And it's so important. You see it perfectly in this film. The craft of this film is beautiful. The lighting is controlled, the grade is controlled, the depth of field is controlled, the wide angleness of the lens or the shortness of the lens. All those things are deliberate choices. And that's the craft of making a film. And really, guys, you have to take that on board. If your filmmaking is about saying something, is about saying something that you believe in, the better you can say that, the better your film and the happier you'll be and the more fulfilled you'll be. If you're stumbling over the basic craft of making a film, you have to put the time in to master. I'm not saying you can't do it. It's absolutely there to be, learned. But you have to realize it is about learning it. It is about, doing it again and again and again and make it better and better and better. And spend your time, really looking at what has happened in the past. Try and understand what filmmakers have done in the past and what photographers have done in the past. You will see there's real beauty for you to understand. And once you have an education, a visual education, you pull on that when you're making a film, because you realize, okay, so I want it to look like this because I imagine it this way. I've seen that before in Baron Adolf de Meyer from 1915. He did something which was a bit like that. I can pull on that, or I can pull on Deborah Turbeville, or that's how you start. That's how every artist references other artists, and that's how you develop your own particular way of speaking. Anyway, it's not particularly necessary because this film actually is the opposite of that. It has a very high level of craft. Very, very sadly, we have to leave it here, which we haven't gone through all the films we'd like to have gone through, but hopefully we can do that next time.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Esme and Nicola, thank you for doing this, and thank you for watching. Please comment below and tell us what you think, and keep sending your fashion film submissions into SHOWstudio. I really enjoy seeing them. It's a real pleasure for me. So thank you for sending them in, and keep on sending them in, and subscribe and like below. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.